I'm shocked at how many people will look at things that are going on and say, yeah, well, it makes sense. Makes sense. People were in their homes, and so there's going to be violence. You're in their homes. I was in my home. I'm not shooting anybody. Oh, people are frustrated. Well, I'm very frustrated. How about you? Are you frustrated? We're not shooting anybody. Well, their businesses were destroyed. Yeah. A lot of people within the sound of my voice, their business was destroyed. They're not going out and destroying other people's businesses. Well, they've gotten the raw end of the deal. The police. Yeah, they have. They have. At times. At times. I mean, this guy wouldn't have had an encounter with police. It's not like they just pulled him over, because he was driving while black. He was in the midst of a crime and dropped a bag of drugs as they were running after him. So it's not like, he could have avoided the police. It's not like they sought him out. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't get to the harshest sentence for this police officer that he deserves. But I don't think that's happening. The George Soros-backed candidate, Keith Ellison, he's upping this to second-degree murder. And everything I have read on this, I don't think he has a second-degree murder charge. I don't think he has it. He's gone from aggressive endangerment, which is basically their third-degree murder, to where you're just totally reckless with abandon, and it causes somebody's death. He's gone from that to really murdering the guy. And all of the other guys that were on the police force with him at that time, they were all in on it. You're going to have those 3 police officers walk, and you might have this police officer walk. That's not what you charge. No prosecutor would ever charge them with that because you have a good chance of losing. Then what? You have more riots on the street. Well, isn't that nice? Oh, because of Keith Ellison's son, who's on the city council, you're not going to have any police. Minneapolis, congratulations. I can't even imagine what your property values are going to be like in a year from now. Congressional Budget Office came out and said the economy will take 10 years to recover from the impact of coronavirus. 10 years. Target and Walmart have closed hundreds of stores between them in the last week because of the riots. Adidas has temporarily closed all of its stores. All of its stores, all across America. Amazon has scaled back or adjusted delivery routes, handful of cities, to protect its employees. Many small business owners in Minneapolis, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C. are starting just now to reopen their businesses and restaurants when the riots hit. The Wall Street Journal reports that Minnesota state officials are already estimating that Minneapolis has over $1 billion in property damage. And that doesn't include the job losses or the looting. As of last Tuesday, at least 300 businesses across Minneapolis and St. Paul had been vandalized, looted, or had its doors and windows smashed. Out of the 308 damaged businesses, 45 of them are now nothing but rubble because they were destroyed by fire. And I guess the crowning achievement of the rioters in Minneapolis is they've completely burned down a $30 million affordable housing project, 190 housing units that were slated to open in the spring of 2021. Community Group in Atlanta says that last week's riots alone caused $10 to $15 million in property damage. That doesn't include any losses from looting. Because of the Freddie Gray riots in 2015, Baltimore had $9 million in damages. Los Angeles, $1.4 billion. $1.4 billion. In Detroit, in 1967, it was $322 million. Miami, 1980, $204 million is what it cost that city to get back onto the grid. New York, 1977, $118 million. Baltimore, $104 million. Chicago, $168. New York, $30 million. Now, here's the thing. It's not just the damage. It's what happens to the areas of town that are ravaged. There's an economic professor at the College of Holy Cross. He studied the 1992 Rodney King riots in L.A. He said the economic activity in the areas didn't return to previous levels for 10 years. He said the riots cost $5 billion in lost sales in those 10 years. And the ones who really are hurt are the minorities because it's in their neighborhood. A conclusion from Vanderbilt University. We find the occurrence of a riot significantly depressed the value of black-owned property between 1960 and 1970, and there was little or no rebound during the 70s. The riot's effects were powerful enough to shift the center of the property value distribution in these cities. The effects were not narrowly contained in the areas that experienced the riot activity. Their estimates suggest that the riots caused 10% decline in the total value of black-owned property in cities. Who are you helping? Who are you helping? You're not helping the black community. You are hurting the black community. Of course, if I say that, I'm apparently hurting the black community. You repeat it. You're hurting the black community. I don't know about you, but I'm done with all of that. I'm done with it. You know, there was a police officer that was told to kneel down in front of the crowd. And he said no. He's in Georgia. He's a state trooper. You might have heard this. I don't know if you heard the whole story. But he's a law enforcement officer that refused to kneel for protesters at a Black Lives Matter rally in Hartwell, Georgia on Sunday. He's a state trooper. He said, I only kneel for one person, and that person is God. He's being ravaged today. These are the times we talked about for so long. This is the act of terrorists. That's what's happening. It's terrorism. This is hatred. This is racism masking as anti-racism. This is the racial equivalent of Antifa. I'm not going to apologize for my white privilege. Was it easy for me to do this? No. No, I grew up in a poorish family. I mean, I didn't live in the projects. But we worked hard for everything that we had. I didn't have any special privilege. My folks couldn't afford to send me to college. I had to pay for it when I was 30. I believe America is not a racist nation. Obama wouldn't have been elected if it were. Trump's not a racist. Jesse Jackson was praising him in the 90s for supporting the Rainbow Push coalition. Trump has had a black girlfriend. What white supremacist Nazi lover dates a black woman? Meanwhile, I've got pictures of Joe Biden sniffing the heads of 30 kids. Not one of them is black. What's he have a problem with black people? With black kids? Why isn't he maybe he should talk to Corn Pop about this. Joe Biden has said more racist stuff in the last 30 days than Trump has said probably in his whole lifetime. But here's the thing I want you to hear. Joe Biden now says he has all the solutions to fix race relations in this country. Well, why the hell didn't you share that with Obama? When you had power, how come when you were in the Senate you didn't share those ideas? Why didn't you use that knowledge at any time in the last 4 years in office to fix things? Because your solution is the same. get black people to vote for you, and then abandoned them. You know, I was talking to a friend this weekend, and I said, I'm so glad that the Lord showed us that this was coming. I'm so glad that we knew. Can you imagine if you didn't have God and you didn't have hope? You didn't have God, so you didn't know how the story ended. You had no inkling that this was coming. Can you imagine what kind of panic you would be in right now? We knew this was coming. This is the time where we either stop evil or we succumb to it. And the first thing we have to do is not become evil ourselves. We have to let go of our anger, and we have to steel ourselves for perseverance. Don't burn out in the pregame, because this is going to go on for a while. You know, every day when I sit down here at this desk and I talk to you in the last couple of weeks, I think to myself, well, gee, I'm going to say that. I don't know. Is that racist? I mean, maybe I shouldn't say that. What? There are many things that I believe that I shall never say, but I shall never say the things that I do not believe. I didn't understand what Immanuel Kant meant when he said that. I read that 15, 20 years ago now, and I couldn't understand the world that he lived in. It's the world we're living in now. I'm not a racist. I don't think you're a racist. Maybe we've done hurtful things from time to time, or we didn't pay attention to certain things, because everybody lives in their own world. But I am not apologizing for the sins of the past. I can't fix the past. I had 2 relatives. My 2 great uncles died in the Civil War, fighting for the North. I'm not going to apologize for anything. I'll work side by side with anybody. I'll teach whatever I can to anybody. I'll hire anybody qualified. I don't care what they look like. I have no problem with that. But the media conditioning that we're going through right now, think about this. I told you this. I was thinking about this morning. I told you about this a while back. When you have a war, everything can be changed because people get so tired of it that by the end of it, it's a new normal. By the time you go back to it, it's not the same. Everything's askew, but you don't know or you don't care because at least that's over. What do you think is happening to us right now? They've been talking about a new normal for a while. But remember, they weren't talking about a new normal because we were going to wear masks. They were talking about a new normal and how this was going to change everything. Progressives had this opportunity. And when we started saying, okay, enough is enough, all of a sudden the protests start. I'm not saying you shouldn't protest. And I'm not saying that killing was anything other than a horrible move by a pretty bad guy. But we are being played. We are being played. Don't fall into those hands. Know what you believe. Know our true history. Don't apologize for it. And stand.